Imagine this. You run a small dhaba in Mumbai. On March 10th, 2026, you pick up your phone to call for a fresh LPG cylinder. And they end up telling you, sorry, sir, we will have to wait for at least 25 days. Now, this is your situation: no gas, no kitchen, no income. Now, here's the strange thing: it is not because something has happened in your city, not even in your country, but 4,000 kilometers away in the deserts of Middle East, Israel and United States of America have just bombed Iran. And that war, that very conflict is now sitting on your gas stove in your kitchen. Now let us go back to Feb 28th, 2026. At 3 a.m. Indian Standard Time, US and Israel launched a coordinated airstrike on Iran, targeting their nuclear facilities, missile bases, and IRGC command centers. Within hours, Iran's supreme leader released a chilling statement: the Strait of Hormuz is closed until further notice. Now, most people in India heard and thought, ठीक है, ये तो वहाँ की problem है, हमें क्या? This is their problems, not ours. Wrong. Completely, dangerously wrong. And here's why. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow strip of water, only 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, which is between Iran and Oman. About 20% of the entire world's oil supply passes through this very corridor. For India, the number is even more shocking. 95% of our total LPG import comes from this Strait of Hormuz. We import 18 million metric ton of LPG cylinder every year. Domestically, we could produce only 40%. So rest 60% comes from Qatar, Kuwait and UAE via this very single door corridor, which is now closed. And when this happened, LPG cargo ships stopped sailing. Shipping companies invoked force majeure, which means they legally stopped the delivery. Insurance premiums for vessels in the Gulf jumped 400% overnight. 4 Indian-bound LPG tankers were also stranded and anchored off the coast of Oman. And India's national LPG buffer stock, only 10 days. Usually the average or safe average is 21 days. So now you can imagine, we not even had half of it. Indian government saw this coming, and so they pulled out a 70-year-old law to protect your home and the other 330 million households in our country. And that law is called Essentials Commodity Act 1955. And today we are going to show you exactly how India is using this as its Raksha Kavach, the shield to protect our nation in this war economy. To understand this act, we need to go back, way back to 1955. India had just gained independence 8 years earlier. We had already fought partition, food riots, and near famine situation. Our leaders then understood one thing: if essential goods can be hoarded, they will be hoarded. And at the end of the day, poor people will suffer the most. So Parliament passed the Essential Commodities Act 1955. It is a simple but very powerful law. Under Section 3 of this Act, the central government gets extraordinary powers over certain goods, what we call Zaruri Vastu or essential commodities. Now, what are these powers? Well, these powers include fixing production quotas, setting price ceilings, controlling storage and distribution, seizing stockpiles, cancelling licenses, and even regulating interstate movement of goods. Now let us understand this with an example. This means the government can enter any warehouse, any refinery, or in fact any storage facility and can tell, listen, these goods now belong to the common people. And even if it is owned by a private company, they can do nothing about it. Now in 2020, the government made an important amendment. Several items including cereals, pulses, edible oils, onions and potatoes were actually removed from the essential commodities list. Reason? It was to attract private investment and reduce government interference in agriculture market. Now here's the crucial clause that most of the people missed in this 2020 amendment. It specifically says, in times of war, famine, extraordinary price rise, or natural calamity, the government can instantly re-invoke full powers over any commodity. And these included the ones that were removed from the list. So what exactly did the government do? Let us walk through the actual orders. No political promises, no press conferences, but actual Gazette notifications. First, on March 6, 2026, Cabinet invoked the ECA or Essentials Commodity Act using the war clause that we discussed earlier. LPG, liquid petroleum gas, PNG, piped natural gas, and CNG, compressed natural gas, were now officially declared as the protected essentials. Every refinery, every oil marketing company, whether it was HPCL, IOCL, or BPCL, were now asked, or let's say, were legally bound to prioritize household supply over everything else. Then, on March 8, 2026, the Indian Navy launched an operation which they called Operation Sankalp Phase 2. INS Vishakhapatnam, INS Kolkata, and two P-8I maritime patrol aircraft were deployed to the Arabian Sea. Their mission? Escort Indian flagged LPG tankers safely through the war zone. Result? 6 tankers were safely escorted to the Mumbai port. On March 10, 2026, the Ministry of Petroleum issued Gazette order, and this single document changed how every molecule of gas in India would be now distributed. It created a 4-tier allocation system. At the top is Tier 1, with full allocation given to domestic gas supply, CNG for vehicles, and piped natural gas, so that your kitchen, your auto driver's fuel, or vehicle is still secure. Then comes Tier 2, fertilizer plants, where at least 75% was maintained so that our Indian farmer could still get urea for their rabi crops. Next is Tier 3, the industries that keep our country running, whether it is steel, power, or core sectors. These industries are given 80% supply to maintain and keep the industries running. And finally, Tier 4. The lowest priority is given to the commercial and industrial users. These includes hotels, restaurants, and petrochemical factories. In the meantime, the government ordered the refineries to actually redirect or divert their production of propane and butane streams to make LPG cylinders. Earlier, these streams would go to petrochemical industries. Now, what was the result of this? The LPG or household LPG cylinder output actually increased by 25% in just a week. This is when our Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri goes onto the national television and addresses the nation and tells them, there is no shortage of energy in India and no cause for concern. Now you might wonder, is it really working? Well, the honest answer is, it depends on who you are and where you are. Your gas cylinder is now protected. Your home's cooking fuel has first priority by the law. So basically, if you are a household in India right now, your government has your back. But unfortunately, for commercial users, the story is not so good and is actually very painful. In Bengaluru, which is India's tech capitals and one of the most hotel-dense cities in India, on March 10, 2026, the Hotel Association reported that only 10% of them got their scheduled gas supplies. Yes, only 10%. The rest 90% of hotels and restaurants be running on whatever the gas they have been stored before. Whereas in Mumbai, the commercial LPG refills delay stretched from 2 to 8 days. The National Restaurant Association of India reported that 75% of India's food service runs on LPG. And if this crisis continues for weeks, we are talking about lakhs of crores in losses and hundreds of thousands of daily wage workers without income. So let us take a step back and understand what this war, this moment means for India. India is the world's third largest energy consumer with over 1.4 billion people. We are also one of the fastest growing economy in the world right now. And yet, we import 60% of our LPG or liquid petroleum gas, almost all of it through one single 33 kilometer strait, which is controlled by a country of war. This is not a foreign policy problem. This is a national security crisis in slow motion. The ECA, Essentials Commodity Act, worked in March 2026 because it gave government the speed and legal authority. But it is a fire extinguisher. It stops the fire after it starts. Now India needs a fire prevention strategy. And what does that look like? It means diversifying of LPG suppliers, US, Africa, Australia, so no single war in future can hold us hostage. It means building strategic petroleum reserves, not for 10 days, not for 21 days, but for at least 90 days of storage like Japan and South Korea. It also means investing in nano urea and domestic fertilizer innovation so our farms are not hostage to imported gas prices. And at the end, it means completing the Eastern Maritime Corridor, which can act as a permanent alternative route that bypasses Hormuz entirely. The Iran-Israel US war is like a mirror, and India is looking at its vulnerabilities in that mirror, clearly and maybe perhaps for the first time. The question now is not whether India can handle one crisis. The question is, are we building the infrastructure, the reserves, and the alliances so that the next war, whenever and wherever it is, never reaches your gas stove? Now, before you leave, if you found something useful, please share it with your friends and family. We would love to know your views on it. Here's a question for you. Do you really think India is energy secure right now? Yes or no, and why? Let us know in the comment section below so that we can read the comments and learn something from you guys. And at the end of the day, if you learned something good, please share it with your friends and family. Let us know what you think about this video and help us grow. Till then, keep learning, stay curious. Jai Hind. See you in the next one.